I would like to present about introduction of our project. Construction sites are very dangerous places to work. Every year, every month, thousands of people, especially the labor worker, are injured and at work on a construction site. So, if someone work in construction site, it is even more important that to put health and safety as priority in every work. Usually, construction sites in Malaysia have two important person who in charge the health and safety, which is first triple S, site safety supervisor, and the second one is SHO, health and safety officer.
So for the first thing is construction industry play a major role in develop the economy of a country. The construction activity are one of the highest contribute worldwide, which is to develop a country towards an economical stable and the developing country that successful in economy started for construction industry. However, it contribute to the safety risk and hazard toward who may be affected by the workplace environment such as the workers, the employers, and customer. Next, factor risk and hazard. In this industry, expose many risks and hazard that occur at construction site. For example, in roofwork that may causes many hazard and risk to the employers, and the people who was at workplace. However, an accident from construction activities are not the highest contribute to accident statistic in Malaysia. By refer the table from international conference, the hazard that occur include in roofwork activities which is the workers fall from scaffolding. Next.
I would like to continue to methodology of this project. First, our first step is make an introduction about safety and health. And second, identify safety and health hazard and risk. The third step is make a risk assessment. First, we make the risk assessment likelihood, and second is severity. And the fourth one, we create the hierarchy table based on roof work. And the last one, we analysis and make the discussion of this project.
And we continue with the hierarchy table. The work activity is the installation or inspection of roof tiles. This work activity gives many hazards, and the first hazard is working at sloping roofs without proper guardrails. It gives effects such as minor, serious or fatal injuries due to falling from height. And the existing risk control is wearing safety harness and safety helmets, while the risk is 9, which is it is medium. So, the recommended control measure is to provide adequate edge protection before proceeding with the work. The second hazard is working on roof during bad weather, for example, rain or snow. These also give effects minor, serious or fatal injuries due to falling from height. And the existing risk control is to avoid from working during these conditions. The risk is also 9, which is medium, and the recommended control measure is avoid working during these conditions. The next hazard is working on roof without toe bolts. It also gives effects minor to serious injuries to occupants below to objects falling from height. And the existing risk control is install toe bolts and ensure workers wear safety helmets. The risk is also 9, which is medium, and the recommended control measure is install safety net below the area of roof work and prohibit workers from going underneath the area. We continue with the same work activity. It is installation or inspection of roof tiles. The hazard is prolonged work under direct sunlight, and it gives effects such as heat rashes, heat cramps, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke. And the existing risk control is to avoid heavy manual work in hot environment. And the risk is 6, it is medium, and the recommended control measure is to drink adequate cool drinks and work in cooler parts of a day. And the next work activity is the welding operations. The welding operations give hazard welding at roof without proper protection. This causes discomfort to the eyes. The existing risk controls is to wearing face shield and goggles, and the risk is 4, which is low, and the recommended control measure is to provide the PPE to the workers.
The next one is also related to welding operation, which is doing welding works for a long period of time. So welding can consume a long time to be done. So this prolonged time of welding works will cause burns to skin and might also causes skin cancer from the ultraviolet radiation. So for the existing risk control, we must wear appropriate PPE, which is maybe overall to cover the whole body, especially the arm area, and also wear face shield on the face. So the likelihood of this happening is 3, and the severity is 3, and the risk of the hazard is 9. So the recommended control measure is provide adequate PPE, which is the overalls and the face mask, and also recommended to wear sunscreen before doing any work to avoid any exposure of ultraviolet radiation. So the person in charge is also site supervisor and site safety officer. Next is also welding operation, which is the hazard is welding fumes. So the effects can cause lung cancer or asthma. So this welding fume is proven to be fatal in most cases. So the existing risk control is avoid or reduce exposure, maybe by wearing a mask, a face mask. So the likelihood for this to happen without any protection is 4, and the severity is 4, which is very high. So the risk is 16. So the recommended control measure is using respiratory protective equipment, or RPE, to help in filtering the fumes before we inhale the air. So the person in charge is site supervisor and site safety officer. And the last hazard related to welding operation is no clear exit in case of fire. In case of welding, there will always be sparks depending on what type of welding is used for the roof. In order for safety of welders, there must be a clear path of exit in case of an emergency. So the effects of not having a clear exit in case of a fire is of course burn, whether first degree, second degree, or third degree burns. And so the existing risk control is to provide stairs as an exit path, or maybe provide additional stairs that is not obstructed when there is a fire. So the likelihood of this happening is 3, and the severity is 3. So the total risk is 9. So the recommended control measure is provide mobile access equipment, which is something like a skylift, so that maybe stairs are not really stable, but those skylifts are much more stable. So the person in charge is site supervisor and site safety officer. The next work activity is mobilization of the steel roof components using a lorry. So the hazard related to this is workers, materials, and machinery movement on site. When there is a mobilization of materials such as the steel trusses of the roof, so this arise some sort of risk. So the effects of these materials maybe falling off or not tied up securely on the lorry is minor, serious, or even fatal injuries due to operator and worker negligence. So the existing risk control is assigning a signalman to control the trailers and workers, to control the movement of on the side of the workers, to avoid any mishaps happening. So the risk analysis is 3, severity is 3, and the risk is 9. So the recommended control measure is assigning a signalman on site in the time of mobilization of this equipment. So the person in charge is the site supervisor, site safety officer. The last work activity is the construction or repairing of the roof. So the hazard is electrocution by contacting electrical conduit that is buried in the old roofing material. So when we are constructing, when we are doing any maintenance or constructing the roof, there might be exposed live wires or electrical conduits in the area. So the effects of this hazard is fatal injury due to contact with overhead power lines. So the existing risk control is de-energizing the circuits or grounding it or guarding it effectively by insulation. Before the work is done, we must discharge all of the charges in the circuits of the structure, and then we maybe during construction we must insulate any exposed live wires beforehand, so that this can be prevented. So the likelihood of this hazard is 4 and the severity is 4, which is very high. The risk by this hazard is 16, which is the highest physical injury. So the recommended measure control is the same: de-energizing the circuit, grounding the circuit before working on it, and provide insulation such as electrical tape to avoid accidental contacts with the live wire. So the person in charge is the same, site supervisor and also site safety officer. So that's all for me.
I will explain furthermore on our discussion and conclusion regarding our project based on Roofworks. So based on the hierarchy table that have been evaluated, one of the critical safety hazard is electrocutions. The effect from this activity is fatal injury due to in contact with the overhead power lines that exist. Electrocution causes the current to flow through the body, resulting in electrical shock and burns. Worsen the case if the worker who suffers from electrocutions falls from the roof. Therefore, electrocutions is one of the critical safety hazards that brings fatal injury to the workers. Next is, we found out that one of the critical health hazards is inhalation of welding fumes from the welding activity. This is because excessive exposure to welding fume and gases can result in eye, nose and throat irritation, dizziness and nausea. Inhalation of welding fumes considered as critical health hazard because welding fumes contain a variety of chemicals, and welding on stainless steel is the most hazardous welding activity. Next is how to control of the hazard. For the control measures of safety hazard, by eliminate the hazard, which is the first one, control the source of working at safe distance and use mechanical transportation rather than manual methods as process control. And the second one is to maintain the clearance distance from the existing power lines and never store materials and equipment under or near the power lines. For the health hazard, we have 3 types of control, which is engineering control, administrative control, and PPE. For engineering control, we suggest to use of local exhaust ventilation or LEV as fume extraction to protect the welder and preventing fume from spreading. Next is administrative control, which is work practices such as standards and operating procedures, which including of training, housekeeping, and equipment maintenance. And the last one is to wear PPE, which is the wearing of personal protective equipment such as respirators, protective clothing such as gloves, face shields, eye protection, and footwear that function to provide a barrier between the wearer and the fumes. So in conclusion, the most critical safety hazard for roof works is electrocutions by contacting electrical conduit that buried in old roofing material while constructing or repairing the roof, and inhalation of welding fumes from welding activity is the most critical health hazards for roof works. The most effective hierarchy of control for the safety hazard is by eliminating the hazard, and for the health hazard, engineering control, administrative control, and wearing of PPE should be implemented. Therefore, our objective for our project have been achieved. For the recommendation, the first one is toolbox meeting should be mandatory to make workers aware on hazard and risks as well as to increase the safety in the workplace. Second one is, in order to reduce the welder being exposed to any other hazardous substance during welding activity, the other techniques that can be implemented is by using cold joining techniques. Safety site officer that is assigned should assure all the welders and the workers to wear suitable respiratory protect equipment or RPE, and excluding unprotected people or any other workers from the welding areas. I think that is all from us. Thank you.